Now, not long ago, on a warm April day, I made an impulse buy, as some of y'all say. I need a sidekick that could be stowed along with me on the lonely old road. I reckon I bought him rather blind, as there wasn't much info that I could find. It piqued my curiosity even more, as I didn't learn much when searching online. It's some kind of frisbee or a UFO made by the Japanese company that some of y'all know. It's made by Zoom, which is mostly known for that portable digital recorder gizmo. Now, it was small enough, and it didn't cost a ton. I bet it'd be useful. At worst, it'd be fun. Maybe I'd get lucky enough to discover a fair-priced alternative to the Op-1. On the first night of my travels, I put them to work, but I found a distraction that actually made me smirk. There's a preset sound named after yours truly, or it's a weird coincidence, and I'm an arrogant jerk. I explored his features as much as I could, despite the preset sounds not being that good. I even brought him to Analog Haven, that synthesizer mecca near Hollywood. I brought him with me to Google to see what they thought, but the impressions I got were slightly distraught, as I wasn't showing off some device I made, but rather some drum machine I randomly bought. Y'all people were underwhelmed on this trip so far, so I figured it'd be better to lower that bar, so I introduced him some wild mountain gophers, or whatever those annoying rodents are. We traveled for weeks, and I gave it my best, and his interface made me quite a bit stressed. I even tried to make a whole complete song, but it left me with one aching request. Look here, the drum pads are solid, and the hardware is great. The knobs are robust, and the unit has weight. This is a trend with a lot of Zoom's products. The software sometimes makes me irate. So I beg his makers in the Far East, this thing has potential to be an absolute beast. If you make the firmware open source and write a dev guide, you will be blown away by how your sales increase. I reckon that ends my poem with the Zoom UFO, the affordable gadget that nobody knows. We traveled the West and made lots of beats, so let's look at its downsides, as well as its feats.
This is a review of the Zoom ARQ copyright symbol, Arrow, not like Arrow, but Arrow Rhythm AR-48 all-in-one production and live performance instrument, which is not the same as the Zoom ARQ copyright symbol, Arrow Rhythm AR-96 all-in-one production and live performance instrument. Idiot, they're two different things. Now, a Google search for the AR-48 would ideally bring me to a feature comparison between the AR-48 and the AR-96. Apparently, the AR-48 is a big upgrade from the AR-96, and the lower number, for some reason, means better. I'm not sure how or why they decided to choose the letters AR with 2 digits after it, but that naming scheme has been used elsewhere, and I'm not sure why they would want these products to coexist alongside them, but to each their own. The point is that this is a little too confusing, and that's kind of a big problem. When I brought this on tour for the last 3 weeks, I showed it to a lot of musician friends of mine, and the ones that knew of Zoom's UFO Frisbee-esque drum machine series thought that it was the AR-96. They had no idea that the AR-48 came out, and they barely even knew of the AR-96's existence. I'm gonna be honest, the marketing for the AR-48 so far has been not good at all. I would show you a clip, but Zoom is literally sampling Daft Punk off of a streaming service in it and then having that audio in their video. Guys, you can't do that. If you asked me to use my music for free in a demonstration of illegally sampling something from Spotify onto your sampler, I would CC my attorney in the email telling you to f*** off. Yo, Zoom, seriously, unless you guys paid the 6 figures or whatever to license that track, I would take that down. That shit is like a copyright infringement showcasing a copyright infringement. Sony's team of legal assassins is gonna f*** you up. Anyway, this thing actually is a pretty adept all-in-one production tool that only costs $350, and I absolutely love that Zoom and Behringer and companies like that release stuff at that price point. I think it's really important, and people thumb their nose up at them all the time, but while they do that, I will use my little portable Zoom recorder and my DeepMind 12 and make some really fun music. If you've taken economics in college, you could just fast forward past this part, but there is a side effect that kind of affects Zoom and Behringer, because especially in technology, pricing high is actually a marketing strategy. For example, some of you may remember the Google Nexus 5. It was a great phone. It was featured really well, and it retailed for $350 without a contract. The iPhone 5 came out around the same time, and that was retailing at $750 without contract. Now, the Nexus 5 was arguably the better phone in almost any way. You could easily compare the two of them together. But no amount of information or marketing could convince consumers that the Nexus 5 could compete with the iPhone 5 because it was only priced half as much. So therefore, the first thing that a consumer's mind will do is say it's only half as good. Nowadays, the Google Pixel 2 XL retails for about $1,000, and it arguably gets even more attention than the iPhone did, at least this last year. And this extends even to how companies like Monster Cable can sell you a digital cable for $150, where you could literally get the same amount of quality by soldering paper clips from your TV to your receiver. If I held this up and said that it cost $1,500, some of, or maybe even the majority of my viewers, would salivate a bit more when they heard the sounds, because that premium price comes with a confirmation bias, and you'd listen more carefully, expecting good things to come out of it. And I'm not saying that Zoom or Behringer should raise their prices. They happily exist in that cheap gear category, and that's their business plan, and it works very well for them. And it's actually a really good thing because it drives down the premium price of some of the competitors. So spoiler alert, I'm actually going to give you my overall opinion before we get into the weeds of this thing. It's kind of like a Swiss Army knife with a whole bunch of nice tools in it, but it hurts your fingers every time you try and pull one of those tools out. This has so many features. It has a DC in, MIDI out, left and right audio out, an audio input. On the other side it has SD card. This is for like some sort of Bluetooth dongle that I can't find anything about. This is wireless. This part could just come off and you could just like throw it around and make beats or whatever. And then you also have an SD card slot that supports as much memory as I could put in it, headphones, and then mini USB, I guess. We're still using mini USB for some reason. Now the AR-96 just had like a 2.0 firmware come out, and it comes with a PC editor, but I guess it only works on Mac, so personal computer editor that only works on an Apple computer. But if I had some sort of visual interface to make presets, this thing would be 10 times more powerful to me, and it would probably be in my studio at all times. My cowboy poetry still stands, and it still highlights how I feel. Zoom, unless you guys have some epic, ultimate, amazing 2.0 firmware dropping for this thing right around the corner, I would just make it open source and release a development guide. You have nothing to lose. It's not like any of the software on here is some trade secret that somebody's going to steal. And you could still ship it with your original firmware, and other people could be on their own to upload alternate firmware to it. As is, this is worth about $350 to me, and I'm kind of on the fence, which is really unfortunate because the hardware is really, really tough and really robust, and I feel like I couldn't break it if I tried. If this could be a Euclidean sequencer with multiple tracks, with multiple rhythm tracks, or if it could be a more functional looper, or if I could have a PC editor of some sort, or an Android editor of some sort, this would be invaluable to me. It would be next to my modular in my studio at all times, and I would buy another one to bring on tour with me. And maybe, just maybe, if you open up that source code, you'll have people like me yammering about it, and it'll be on Create Digital Music, and then you'll actually have developers coming in and making those things happen. And these will sell like hotcakes. Oh, I apologize for how long my monologues are. I need to make them a lot shorter. So if you like this video, subscribe to comments and whatever else. Let's hear this thing.
This is Deming, New Mexico. This is Hollywood. This is Hollywood, too. before I even turned this thing on, I knew that I probably wouldn't be that happy with the onboard sounds. So one thing that I did is I loaded up an SD card full of sample library, and I believe that sample library is Smoker's Relight or something. And so we have, these are all on board. Let's see. Yeah. Yeah, so that allowed me to make one's called Quackswood. I don't think I was actually at a place called Quackswood. I've clearly made a lot of presets here. So here is one where I just plugged my electric guitar, which I bring with me on tour naturally, directly from the output of my guitar, dry input into this guy, and I sampled a bunch of harmonics and sounds. So, and then I think there's some sounds from the sample library, and then more sounds from the sample library. So if I select one of these, like that, and then click this, I could go. And I believe that, see, now this is where I'm going to get really frustrated and start swearing and stuff. Because the interface kind of kills me. Okay, so this is a minor scale. All right, I could change that scale to Aeolian, let's say. And then even has some like really crazy scales, like has like Indian ragas. Okay, so let's go back to that minor because I don't know if that's going to screw up the whole pattern. I think it was minor 3. Yeah, okay. So let me go back to here. Let's go to song mode. And it kind of has an Ableton clip-like interface, right? So I could just do this. I wanna point out for a second before I continue this that if you noticed, it actually cut the effect between one pattern and the other, and that's really annoying. That's just inexcusably dumb. So restarting. So this is basically kind of like your Ableton clip type thing. And you could set the quantization of when the pads change. And I believe I have this halfway through the pattern. So let's try that for a second. Yeah, so that's what I have going on. All right, blank slate here. So it's really, really easy to make patterns. It's really, really hard to master patterns or do anything detailed, rather. So let's just make a quick pattern here. Everything automatically quantizes. Okay, easy enough. We can also change the length of how far the last step essentially. So we could go. Okay, this drives me crazy. We have so many different sounds here. Not hitting these hard enough. Jesus Christ. We have so many different sounds here. I really wish that I could select this, and the last step, I could make that there, select this one, and the last step, but I can't do that. And that is kind of a real shame. Let's erase this pattern and start over. I'll show you how step mode works. But if we could, if these are 16 different sounds, right? And 16 different sequences, essentially. If we could make each one of those a different last step, then this could be a really awesome generative sequencer, which would, yeah, it'd be a Euclidean sequencer, and that would be amazing. I guess we're just going to wait for this hourglass for a while. This is how long it takes to erase a pattern, apparently. Sometimes it erases very fast. Other times you just have to wait. Maybe my memory card will die in my camera. Okay, so that took a unnecessarily long time. Here's how to use the step sequencer. Bass. So basically, if I hit it lightly, I could put those steps in. If I hit it hard, I could put those steps in. So let's just do some 4 on the floor here. Okay, now the snare. And then hi-hat. I have something to say about the hi-hat. I'm not going to give you a spoiler. All right, let's go. All right, I got a bummer here for you. Listen to this. Notice something about that? There is no choke group. There is no mute group. So I can't choke the hi-hat. I can't choke anything. There is no mute groups whatsoever. So I can't even have the hi-hat close when I hit the closed hi-hat. Every drum machine I've ever played with in my life has had the capability of doing that until this guy. I don't understand why they wouldn't put that in here. It's a huge bummer. To get around it, to actually make a normal hi-hat sound, you have to work very hard. I essentially would have to make this only last as long as I was pressing it and then perfect it in the live recording, or in the step sequencer, actually edit the length of how long the open hi-hat is going in order to match when the closed hi-hat is hitting. Point being, this is a huge oversight and a huge disappointment. And what the fuck were you guys thinking when you did that? Now that I'm done complaining about that, I'm going to try and not mention it again. Let's look at the synth. Okay, so here's our synth sound. I don't know why it's so low. Let's use a scale. Okay, great. So this is our synth. Nope. Okay. It's poly mode. All right, so we have different oscillators. We have 3 different oscillators, and the third one is a special oscillator. So I'm going to make this one a saw. Nope, that's a square. Okay. I'm going to turn this one off. The third one, I am going to make, you could make it a sync source. You could make it a FM source. And you could also use amplitude modulation like ring. Okay, so now I can assign an LFO to the pitch and then edit that LFO, let's say, or an ADSR, for example. And then I can edit that LFO to be random, let's say. Okay, so also let's take our oscillator 2, turn that on, and that I can only use FM with the third oscillator. So let's make this one a pulse. And let's use an ADSR to make the attack come in. On the pitch mod, maybe a little slower. Okay, but as you can see, I can only use the modulation once, and I'm not even sure what it's affecting. I've looked through the manual and tried to figure that out to have a definite answer. I have no idea. But moving on, let's go to a normal sound. So you could see that, like, the FM thing is so powerful. You could have 16 different FM channels. How cool is that? And it could sync as well. So it could be, I assume, if I was able to modulate it with any degree of certainty, I assume it would almost be like a one operator FM that was tuned to the note that I was hitting. But I can't really work with it because you can only modulate one thing at a time per channel, and I don't know which oscillator I'm actually modulating because it just changes randomly. Whatever. Let's hit a different sound here. All right. Let's use the hi-hat. I'm not going to say anything about the choking. I'm done bitching about the choking. All right. So you could have different effects. So you have your master effects, right? These are your master effects. Reverb. Everybody likes reverb. I like reverb. Reverb sounds decent. For what this is, the reverb sounds pretty damn good. Stereo delay. Doesn't really have any tape delay, unfortunately. Okay, so we have that. And then we also have effects that are inside each channel. So I could have a compressor. I could have a pumper. Which, a bass, it's basically fake side chaining. Don't use it. Sub bass, I guess I'd add some bass to it. Talk. Yeah, this one's kind of crazy, the talk. Of course, it's very difficult. All right. Can we turn this down? It's probably the worst sound to use that with. 3-band EQ, that's actually pretty decent. It's nice to have a 3-band EQ. Ring mod, even though we have a ring mod in the oscillator, we could have 2 ring mods at the same time. And is that flanger, phaser, distortion, lo-fi, in case you want everything you make to sound like crap. Just kidding, I use lo-fi all the time in various things. So then we have, beyond that, we have a filter, we have low pass, and this is for every single channel on here. We have 16 different filters. So we have low pass, band pass, high pass, different ones. We have a peaking filter, and you could also just turn it off. We have an ADSR for the filter. We have amp modulation, and then we should have an ADSR for the whole thing somewhere. Yes. Okay. Then we have essentially the amp modulation, and you could set the ADSR for that. And then we could even change the color of the LED. Look at that. I could have a pink, an ocean blue cymbal or hi-hat. And then you could also animate it, I guess. Cool. Maybe I just don't know what I'm doing. Oh, there it goes. Look at that. Neat. Firework. Okay, let's just turn that off. And then we have MIDI. You could just set a MIDI channel. That's the only MIDI option you have. In addition, if I wanted to change this to something else, let's just hit a new sound. Yes, let's use the hi-hat. So we have PCM. These are all our hi-hat sounds. Clap sounds. Snare sounds. And then, of course, the flashbulb snare. which I still have no idea if that has anything to do with me or not. It doesn't really sound like a snare I'd use. I mean, so it's probably not. Probably has nothing to do with me. Probably a coincidence, but it is weird to call a snare a flashbulb snare. Two different kicks. All right, so percussion, then we have voices. Yeah, I don't know. PCM synths. These are random. Oops. Instruments. I mean, you know, they're okay. And then the synth we've already seen. And then audio file. So I made this nice folder where everything could be organized in a way that I would be able to use it happily and easily. Zoom don't care. Zoom don't care that I organized it. Okay, so to select an audio file, I can't preview it. So let's say I want to make this chord envy. I can't even see the whole file name. All right, so did it work? It worked. Okay, so now I want to change it. Okay, that actually worked. I've had a lot of problems with this. Okay, so now I want to change it again. Oh, now, okay. Shut up. Okay, so what happened now is when I went to change it, I've now changed different pads automatically. Like, I wish that you could just not change pads by twisting this. I wish you could only change pads by touching the pads, because this drives me nuts. Okay, so I want to hit, all right. Okay. Nope, see, now I'm doing that again. This drove me absolutely mad over the 3 weeks while I was using this. I got so angry with this thing because of that, because every time I tried, because browsing samples, I kept going through that situation where I kept changing the pad, and then I would change the sample on the pad that I wasn't initially intending to, and it just drove me absolutely crazy. And I would say that because of that one issue, there was 50% of the patterns I was making I completely abandoned. I just said, you know what? I don't have time for this, and I put it away and did something else. Another weird thing that sometimes happens, sometimes doesn't, let me hit the kick. Okay, normal, right? Whoop. Hear it? I didn't hit any other buttons. I didn't turn any knobs, and now my kick sounds like this. Why? What? Is it because of this? Do I need to like move this thing around? No. So now this is my kick. Oh, it's changing. But I don't know how. Moving on, if you press function, you can edit all sorts of things like it. So for example, we're quantizing at 1/16 on live input. I could change that to a triplet. I could turn that completely off, which is very useful. I could change the length of this pattern to 4 rather than 2 bars. And then it automatically asks you if it can copy the sequence over. So you don't have to redo everything. If, so for example, if you had kicks and hi-hats or something, you could just copy that to the second one and then add in your snare fills. You could turn on pre-count, just your standard things, and then some external clock, MIDI out. I wonder if MIDI out... Oh, wait. No, I've been in this hole before. I don't want to be back here. Just kidding. This thing is also wireless. So we can unplug it and then turn it on back here. Does it? Oh, I guess it doesn't connect now. Okay, so let's plug it back in. Does not... It stops the pattern. Okay. So apparently, in an ideal world, you could unplug this and it connects to the bass, and then you wirelessly have this thing, and you could run around and hit people in the head and make drum beats that way, or whatever you want to do with it. But that's not working for me, clearly. I could show you how the sampling works. It works, just not that great. I could show you how to load files onto the SD card, where you have to convert them to the exact file format, bit, and kilohertz that they want. I could show you how the MIDI works, and it's all just has the same mantra, that is frustration. I have a conspiracy theory that gives Zoom a little bit of credit. I think that maybe their distributor said, yo, you need to have this out by NAMM, because we need to show it to everybody at NAMM. And the 1.0 firmware is actually like the 0.5 firmware, and they're just not done with it. And maybe they're going to release this baller firmware update that's going to fix all of the issues and all the frustrations that I've had. But if this, the H6 or the H4n, if that tells me anything, then I'm thinking that they might not, because the H6 portable recorder is an incredible recorder. I'm using it right now for this video, and it's great. But the software is just a pain in the butt to use. I never use the metronome in it. To pan the channels left and right from this thing, I sit there and hold the button down and watch it go slowly. After playing with this and thinking about it for so long, the big takeaway here is that Zoom seems to have a problem where their devices would be worth so much more than what you're paying for them if they had better UX design, and if they just had a little bit better software, if they just tested things a little bit more and listened to their customers' complaints a little bit more, their products would be unstoppable in the market. I really love the hardware. The pads are nice. The unit's heavy. It's built like a tank. I feel like I couldn't break it if I wanted to. And the hardware inside, I don't know what the specs are, but it seems to be capable of handling 16 different polyphonic FM synthesizers, so it must be pretty good. But it's just that software that ruins the experience. Playing with it is fun. Making something on it is absolutely not fun. And that's my takeaway from it. And hey, I'm really picky about interfaces. I think there's a lot of people who would enjoy this as is. And for $350, I can't tell you not to buy it. I think that this might be worth $350. But again, if they had alternate firmware, or if they release a firmware update that fixes these issues, $350 is going to be an absolute steal. I've said this in other videos, and I'm going to say it again. I hate making a video that leaves my viewers with a less than good impression of a product. And there is actually a selfish reason behind that. If this had mute groups or choke groups, for example, that's probably my biggest complaint about this. If it had that, then I would just use it and I would show you how to use it and then move on. But if it doesn't, I have to comb through the manual twice to make sure that I'm not missing anything, so I'm not slandering a product and just, based on my own ignorance. I also don't want to put out negative energy when a company makes something that's cool. And this is cool. It's a cool idea. It's super innovative. That's why I got it. That's why I'm interested in it. That's why I'm reviewing it. This is something I want to use. It's unlike anything else that I own. So Zoom, thank you for being innovative. That is very, very important. And I really, really hope that you fix the issues with this, because this doesn't seem like a lemon product. It just seems like a great product with lemon software. I am done. Thank you for watching. Point your revolver at that subscribe button and fire. And leave a comment if there's anything you want me to cover in the future. Goodbye.